Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach, and today I am driving a 1991 Chevy C1500. Up front is a 5.7 liter V8, and down below is a 4-speed automatic transmission. Now, I am super excited to be driving this C1500 for two reasons. First of all, this is one of my favorite generations of trucks, one of my favorite era of automobiles, and we'll be talking a lot about that towards the end of the video. But the second reason is that this does a lot of mini truck 90s things right. It has small wheels, it's a single cab, and it's a Stepside in a bright, vibrant color. So a lot of eye candy and a lot to talk about here today in this C1500. But if you would like your vehicle featured here on the Shooting Cars channel, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form. It takes under a minute to fill out, and I come out to you. But let's get back to that 5.7 liter V8 under the hood. Well, that's actually not the original engine that came in this particular truck, although you could get them with the 5.7 liter V8. This was originally a 5.0 truck, which was Chevy's 305 V8. This was an incredibly common swap, and this was actually done decades ago in this particular truck because this was the more desirable engine. The 5 liter is such a dog engine. It just wasn't good, it wasn't happy to rev, and it was just never a really great engine. But the 5.7 was. The small block Chevy, the 350 that this engine was in everything. This was kind of GM's baby for decades and decades and decades. We saw it in so many different platforms because it was good, it was cheap to build, it was easy to modify, and so the small block Chevy will always have its jersey hung in the rafters of GM's heritage collection. Like I said, paired to it is a 4-speed automatic transmission, our good old friend, the 4L60E. If I had $1 for every 4L60E I had driven, I would be able to replace them when they break. It's fine, it's doing the job, it's kicked me in the tush a couple of times, but to be expected out of a 34-year-old transmission. Last but not least, this is rear-wheel drive, and you can tell that because of the name. C means 2-wheel drive, K means 4-wheel drive. So if this was a K1500, it would have been 4-wheel drive, but it's a C1500, so it is 2-wheel drive. How does it feel to drive the C1500 from 1991? Well, it's not anything too groundbreaking, especially here on the channel. I've driven a handful of them, but it is very simple and it's very straightforward. It lacks some of the creature comforts that other GMs might have had in the era. It has a lot stiffer of suspension than what you would find in the Blazer or any of their cars, especially with the FE3 packages. But it's honest, it's true. Visibility is good, although this vehicle does have pretty heavy tints. Visibility is good. You get in, you turn the key, and you just kind of go. And again, that will feed into my final thoughts. But with that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have 5 gauges. Off to the left is my coolant temperature and oil pressure. In the center is my speedometer. And off to the right is my fuel and battery voltage. The steering wheel doesn't have anything on it. It is a Chevrolet steering wheel, and this is pre-airbag by a few years. Off to the left, we do have our climate vent and our parking lights that are seemingly trying to escape the dashboard. And moving on to the door, we have this really nice fabric material along with power windows and our latch to get in and out. This was kind of a higher trim truck than just the base model, and you'll notice that because it actually has the Silverado badges on the side. Silverado was originally a trim package, which meant the nice parts, but they later used that name, because they already own the rights to it, as the name of the truck as we moved into the 2000s. Moving into the center, we do have some very fun things to play with, like our standard radio. Absolutely love seeing all of this. The chunky buttons, very much left over from the 80s. And we have a little screen for our climate controls. Rather futuristic here in 1991 to see some lights telling you your temperature and fan speed. This might as well be RoboCop on 4 wheels. Down below we do have an ashtray, and off to the right we have climate vents, an aftermarket radio, and cup holders. So we will do a big friggin' bottle test in the 91 C1500, and it passes. Now, I already knew it was going to pass because we tested a 1988 C1500 and it passed. These are optional cup holders, so this is factory equipment, so it gets a pass on the big friggin' bottle test. No center console to talk about, and we do have a bench seat. It is incredibly comfortable. It is helping soak up some of the bumps that the suspension leaves in place, so I am happy to see it. I love the look of it. I love this blue interior. I think it works really, really well, and the nostalgia, the comfort, the smell, the sensation. I love interiors of 90s GM products. Now, we don't have any back seats, but we do have a bed, so we'll briefly hop back there and talk about that. Plane overhead, it is 50 degrees here, as it's been 10 and 12 degrees the last couple days, and I just saw it. Find a penny, pick it up, the rest of the day you'll have good luck, is what they say, so that will go in that tiny, useless pocket in my jeans. But that is not why we are here. We are here to talk about the C1500. We do have a standard handle here. Bring it down, the most utilitarian tailgate ever, which I absolutely love. Coming around the side here, as you can see, this is the Stepside, meaning it was built with a step in the side. I know, a revolutionary idea of naming, but that does mean that the bed was actually a little bit skinnier. So it's a completely different rear bed for this truck. Kind of interesting. These were popular with mini truck or truck enthusiasts. The small wheels, step side, exhaust, things like that was pretty big in the 90s, and that's clear here. Coming around in here, we have nothing. Yeah, like nothing really to look at, as opposed to the Toyota Tacoma 2024 that I have this week that has an air compressor and lights and an outlet, and it'll cook you breakfast. This has just sheet metal to put other sheet metal or lumber or car parts or people back here. So very, very cool. Pop this back up. That is the bed of the C1500 from 1991. Now we gotta talk about the looks, and first of all, I love the color. I miss colors like this. This was such a 90s, 80s color, a bright, vibrant blue. I don't think you really find that in modern vehicles, and honestly, to me, that's a shame. I really, really like this color. And I like the square bodiness of it. I like the big rectangular headlights. There's no miscommunication here. They are the headlights. They're not trying to put on a show. It's not a Broadway theater. They're square or rectangle. They have hard angles. They work, and that's it. And there's, I think, a separate beauty in that as well. With all of that being said, let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think driving another C1500? Why would I want to do another review? Well, first of all, I love the single cab step-side bed. You don't really find those that much, especially moving into the 2000s. One of the first reviews that I did that really gained some traction was an early 2000s Sierra that was single cab step-side, so I've always had a slight kinship with it. But I also wanted to make this video to talk about this era, 80s and 90s cars. Why do I gravitate towards them? Why do many people gravitate towards them? And I wanted to lay out my reasons. I would love to hear your reasons in the comments down below. Maybe I hit the nail on the head, maybe I'm completely off, but this is how I feel. The first reason is the fact that a lot of us, myself included, grew up around these trucks and around these cars. And now that I actually have adult money for some reason, I can afford to buy these. I can afford to buy a C1500 square body, and I have a lot of memories with this truck. In high school, one of my close friends' older brother had one of these. It was actually a Sierra GMC, and he engine swapped it to a 6-liter V8. And that was the first time I'd ever heard of anyone in my town engine swapping something. I'm sure people had, but I didn't know any of them. So I think nostalgia has a lot to do with it. You know, we're hitting our 30s and 40s, people that were born in the 90s and late 80s. We grew up around these, and so now we can afford them. I think that has something to do with it. But I think a bigger, more glaring reason is the fact that this is a nearly perfect middle ground. This is way before we had so many computers on board deciding every little thing. Emissions existed, and they were definitely very present, but they weren't nearly as strict as we have here today. There wasn't a small displacement turbo option for this. These engines, the Chevy 350, is reliable. It's a good engine. But also, this is past the point of the 1970s. And if you want to daily drive a vehicle, really 1980s and up is where they started to get kind of good. This truck has standard air conditioning and heat, power windows. It doesn't drive like a tractor. Now, can you daily drive 1970s trucks? Sure, you could. But just because you can doesn't mean that you should. I'm looking at you, Ted Ray. Cut it out! Stop it! Stop driving those old trucks! My point being, it's old enough to be simple, but it's young enough to be manageable, if that makes any sense. These were fuel injected. You're not gonna have to fiddle with the carburetors to go to work. And so in the late 80s, early 90s, we had this beautiful, beautiful middle ground where cars, in my opinion, were really great. And it was kind of before we saw so much interior plastics. It was before quality for a lot of American automakers started to go massively downhill. Now, if you talk to anyone who's born and raised from the 60s and 70s, when you talk about 90s cars, they'll say that they were plastic crap. And sure, some of that might be true, but on the flip side, compared to what we have today, this might as well be chiseled out of obsidian. And that is why I love 80s and 90s cars. It's a beautiful blend and middle ground of the past and the present. And it's unfortunate that with every passing day and every passing moment, we're getting away from this era. Cars aren't built like this anymore. And in some regards, at least in safety standards, that's a good thing. But in soul, but in feeling, and in heartbeat, that's sad. And I continue to miss the era of which these vehicles came from. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to Will for letting me borrow his C1500 for today's video. Will has been absolutely awesome. I've reviewed so many of his cars here on the channel. I genuinely have lost track. But this is the first review of his from 2025, and I can almost guarantee that it won't be the last. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.